now the latest, across the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for November the 1st. Well, as we enter the new month, we have 2 active systems in the northern hemisphere and a few AOIs active across the world. The systems active are Wanda and Apollo. Wanda is subtropical, Apollo is still fully tropical. It's day 304 of the year, we're nearing the end of it, and 84 storms have formed this year. Could we get close to that average of 92 before the year ends? We'll have to see if that does happen across the world. Let's get to the Atlantic Basin on day 153 of hurricane season. Wanda, of course, is still active in the open Atlantic. We'll look at its forecast in just a bit. And Invest 95L is still active in the main development region, 30% chance of formation as it generally tracks northwestwards. There is some guidance potentially hinting at some formation in the southern Caribbean this week, so we will have to keep an eye on that. In the Eastern Pacific, it's all quiet here on day 169 of hurricane season. Models are also depicting, alongside with that Southern Caribbean system, the potential for an Eastern Pacific system. They're a bit more consistent with that one forming, actually, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we mark an AOI, or the National Hurricane Center, I should say, marks an AOI here very soon, as models have been depicting the potential for formation off the coast of Mexico. As we get to the Western Pacific, 90W is gone, but the remnants of what it was, I believe, are still around, which could bring some heavy rain to some areas as it continues moving westwards. In the northern Indian Ocean, we have no systems active here right now, although models in the latest run, as particularly the GEFS models, have been depicting a stronger sign of tropical cyclone formation potential in the Arabian Sea. We'll keep you updated on what happens with that. In the southwest Indian Ocean, we have Invest 93S here as we start the season, 30% as this one generally tracks northwestwards. Chances have really decreased. JTWC are only putting this at a low chance of formation at this point. Getting to the Australian region, as again we're starting the season here as well, no storms are active thankfully here as we start cyclone season, and same case in the South Pacific, no storms active, and models really aren't depicting anything in the Australian region and South Pacific over the next 5 days. Let's get to the satellite imagery. Here's the Atlantic Basin. You can see Wanda there diving a bit southwards there, and you can see near the Cabo Verde Islands the general thunderstorm activity associated with 95L. It is not looking too good at all, not really too organized. Other than that, we have a pretty good frontal system draped across the Atlantic Basin. Looks like it just came through Bermuda, and it's pretty dry in the United States for this Halloween night into November the 1st. As we get to the Eastern Pacific, it's generally quiet here. We have some general thunderstorm activity south of Hawaii and South Mexico. Nothing really signifying tropical cyclone formation here, but we could start to see some formation again as we get towards day 5, as again models are depicting that. As we get to the Western Pacific, you can see the remains of what was 90W, still some heavy rain potentially being brought to the Mariana Islands, and as that continues moving west, it could potentially bring some rainfall to places like the Philippines. Thankfully, we're nowhere near where we were a year ago. If you remember, of course, we had our on the stay for last night, which was Goni. I'm so glad we're not seeing a repeat of last year. In the northern Indian Ocean, we have just general thunderstorm activity in southern India and the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. Nothing really significant here. In the southwest Indian Ocean, we can see the 93S looks to be blowing up some pretty deep convection there, pretty good convection there as well. Again, that's going to have a low chance at this time according to the JTWC, as it generally tracks northwestwards across the southwest Indian Ocean. The Australian region, as the sun comes up in cyclone season, nothing really signifying tropical cyclone formation, maybe some rainfall in eastern Australia, but nothing really too significant. And as we look in the South Pacific, we see not much going on here. We do have some extratropical lows if you look towards the southern side of your screen. Some pretty, that one off to the southeastern side of your screen, that one's pretty nice to look at, honestly. So pretty nice to look at here. No tropical cyclone formation expected. Here's the forecast for subtropical storm Wanda. It's not looking to be a big threat for the Azores, but we're expecting this to be around for the majority of the week, as we don't expect it to turn extratropical until on Friday when it's north of the Azores. So it's not going to be moving too fast, and it's going to be hanging around for a while, and at any point it could try to become fully tropical here. So we'll have to see what Wanda does. The sea surface temperatures in the eastern Pacific are fairly warm. They have cooled off a bit, which is to be expected with the time of year. In the Atlantic Basin, we can say the Gulf of Mexico is really starting to cool down, especially towards the coastline, so we had some really strong fall fronts move through. The Gulf Stream is fairly warm. Where Wanda is, it's fairly warm as well. 95L, same case, fairly warm. For 93S in the southwest Indian Ocean, it's got moderate sea surface temperatures, 25 to 26 degrees Celsius, but as it tracks generally northwestwards, it does get into warmer sea surface temperatures, so we'll have to see if it tries anything there. In the western Pacific, it's generally warm for formation if we do get formation, potentially happening later in the month and into December. And in the Australian region and South Pacific, we're generally warm, ready for the cyclone season, as once again, it has begun. As we get to the sea surface temperature anomalies, the Atlantic Basin is still generally above average. We do see a few pockets of near average temperatures where maybe the ocean is starting to cool off as we get past the peak sea surface temperature time, which is in September, of course. The Eastern Pacific is generally above average. The Central Pacific is generally below average, and if you look towards the equatorial regions, we have that La Nina pattern fully in shape now. The Western Pacific is generally above average. Same case in the northern, southern Indian Oceans and Australian region and South Pacific. So generally the world where the tropics are above average here. As we get to the On This Day section, we're going back to 1995. We have a pretty active year, especially in the Atlantic, but also in the Western Pacific. Moving from right to left this time, 30W was active. That would eventually become Brian on November the 1st. Typhoon Angela, this was the big one. Super Typhoon Angela, by Force 13 analysis, was peaking at 200 miles per hour as it approached the Philippines. A very amazing storm and destructive storm, unfortunately, for the Philippines. So glad we're not seeing anything near that this year. We also had Typhoon Zach, which was a Category 3. That would make landfall as a Category 3 in Vietnam today in 1995. We also had in the Atlantic Basin Tropical Storm Tanya, which was moving northeast towards the Azores. Don't believe it would bring too significant impacts to the Azores. And that was the On This Day. If you would like to see more of the On This Day segments that we have on our Twitter page, you can follow Cyclone History on Twitter. Getting to the naming list, the Atlantic Basin finally did it. It finally ended the naming list just yesterday. And we're now looking out for the auxiliary list, which we're looking out for Adria and Brayland. Those are the next two names. In the Eastern Pacific, we're looking out for Sandra, followed by Terry. We could see maybe Sandra fairly soon if the models keep consistent with that next system. In the Central Pacific, while many people are going to start singing Christmas songs on November the 1st, not many people are going to be singing about Hone, as Hone is not yet here and probably won't be here until after the new year, maybe in next hurricane season. As we get to the Western Pacific, it's a bit quiet now here. 90W is again gone. Our next two names are Nieto and Rai. In the North Indian Ocean, the next two names here are Jawad, followed by Asanai. Moving to the Southern Hemisphere, where our seasons have begun, the Australian region, we're looking out for the next two names being Patty and Ruby. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, we're looking out for Anna, followed by Batsarai. And in the South Pacific, we're looking out for Cody, followed by Dovi. Thank you so much for watching this Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll have another one tomorrow night.